Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're digging into something that sounds, well, almost too simple, doesn't it? But it has this surprisingly deep impact. Picture this scene from our sources. There's this new hospital director at New Amsterdam, big job, right? And his first time addressing the staff, he doesn't give some big speech, no mission statement. He just asks 5 words, how can I help you? And apparently that simple question just sent these ripples of surprise everywhere.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because, on the surface it's polite. But what the sources really show is that it's much more, it's actually a whole philosophy. And maybe more importantly, it's a powerful tool, a way to genuinely transform a workplace culture right from the ground up. It signals a real shift.
Exactly. So that's our mission for this deep dive. Let's really unpack how that phrase flips the usual dynamics. What's the psychology behind it? And what are the real benefits? For the company, sure, but also for the people actually doing the work. Okay, so let's get into it. How can I help you? How does that immediately change the dynamic? You said it flips things. The source mentions moving from that typical top-down hierarchy to something called a lateral relationship. What does that actually mean in practice? Does it, weaken the leader's position?
That's a really good question. Because it might sound like that, right? Like giving up control.
Right.
But it's actually quite the opposite. The leader, by asking, is doing what the source calls this active, humble inquiry. It's subtle. They're not saying, I don't know what to do. They're saying, I'm positioning myself as a resource for you, an ally.
Mm-hmm.
It's an implicit acknowledgement. You're the expert on the front lines. You know the challenges. My job is to help you clear the path, which is, a world away from just directing and controlling, the old sort of command and control style. It taps into everyone's expertise.
Right, okay. So it's about enabling, not just directing. That makes sense. So if that's the dynamic shift, what's happening inside? For the employees themselves, what's the internal ripple effect?
Oh, it's huge. When leaders consistently ask this and genuinely mean it, it builds, trust, a sense of psychological safety. And our sources point out something really concrete here. This isn't just about warm fuzzies. It's shown to reduce things like information, hoarding those silos between departments by potentially up to 30%. That's where the real innovation boost comes from. People feel heard. They feel valued. Not just for hitting targets, but for their actual insights, their needs. And naturally, that leads to better job satisfaction, more motivation, people feeling like they actually belong there.
And what I found interesting in the sources was how this "how can I help you" idea, it doesn't just stop at the manager-employee level, does it? It sort of spreads. It permeates the whole organization. Peers start asking each other, maybe even people asking their managers how they can help them. It creates this kind of web of support.
Exactly. It becomes part of the culture. And we zoom out. Connect this to the bigger picture. This internal culture inevitably spills outward. Think about customer service. If employees feel supported and empowered to help each other, that naturally translates into how they treat customers. You see higher satisfaction, more loyalty, and then there are the longer-term wins. Better employee retention. People don't want to leave places where they feel supported. Plus, the company gets a better reputation, which makes it way easier to attract the best talent. It even helps resources get where they're needed faster because people just ask.
Okay, it sounds incredibly powerful. But let's be real. The phrase itself is simple. How can I help you? Easy to say. But actually implementing this as a genuine culture, that feels like it needs more than just repeating the words, right? It must demand a pretty fundamental shift in how people think and act.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can't just fake this. The sources are clear on that. It requires real commitment. They detail practical steps organizations need to take, things like specific training, not just on listening, but on what they call service leadership principles. Basically teaching leaders that their main job is to enable their team. Active listening training is key too, obviously. Encouraging regular check-ins that are genuinely focused on what do you need, not just what have you done. And then recognizing and actually rewarding helpful behaviors, not just individual achievements. Creating clear, simple ways for people to ask for help without feeling like they're failing. And maybe the most critical piece, leaders, especially at the very top, have to walk the talk. They must lead by example, day in, day out.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here? It seems the real magic of how can I help you is in that mix of being so simple yet so profound. It's a move away from just giving orders towards real collaboration.
That's it, exactly. Its power lies in fostering a culture built on empathy, genuine respect, and a shared sense of purpose. When you have that, it doesn't just make the day-to-day better for everyone. It fundamentally equips the organization to navigate, everything the modern world throws at it, right, to actually thrive.
So as we finish this deep dive, think back to that hospital director for a second. What if everyone in that building started asking that question? Just once a day, how can I help you? Maybe consider this. How might asking that one simple question, just once today, shift the dynamic in one of your interactions? Something to think about.